general, el chamanismo, yo pienso, que nació de un conocimiento muy antiguo, que fue traído hasta aquí, desde otro lugar. Pienso que los primeros chamanes trabajaban con conocimiento antiguo de los reinos espirituales y diferentes estados de consciencia, fuera de la consciencia ordinaria. Es un trabajo muy interno. Luego, el verdadero chamán nos muestra el trabajo que ha hecho dentro de sí mismo, revelándolo fuera de sí a lo que aparenta ser el dominio externo, para ser aplicado dentro de la sociedad, y como tal, un chamán es aquel que muestra el camino. Una definición de chamanismo es una tradición antigua de conocimiento, compuesto por diversas prácticas que implica a un practicante alcanzando estados alterados de consciencia a través de diversas técnicas, algunas de las cuales pueden incluir música, baile, prácticas de resistencia o escenarios de resistencia, extremos de temperatura o la ingestión de compuestos alucinógenos, entre comillas, o psicodélicos. Al igual que de otras muchas técnicas también, de forma que interactúan y tienen encuentros con inteligencias existentes en estados puramente espirituales. La palabra chamán por sí misma significa aquel que ve en la oscuridad. Como palabra es lo que significa. A pesar de que la oscuridad está presente a nuestro alrededor, el chamán puede ver en la oscuridad, tiene visión nocturna en otras palabras, y está empleando todo para el beneficio de aquellos a su alrededor que tienen dificultad para ver en la oscuridad. De nuevo, los chamanes han sido considerados como los que muestran el camino de su gente, aquellos que son capaces de enseñar a la gente de su sociedad el camino fuera de la oscuridad, fuera del caos, hacia la luz, hacia el conocimiento. Los chamanes son aquellos que han obtenido el conocimiento de ambas fuerzas, las fuerzas que residen en la psique humana, siendo estas donde se concentra la mayor parte de su trabajo. Particularmente trabajan con el material oscuro que se encuentra profundamente arraigado en el subconsciente, pero también trabajan con las fuerzas inherentes de la naturaleza, las que yo llamo las leyes naturales, y usan este conocimiento para el beneficio, la sanación y la inspiración de su comunidad. Los chamanes a menudo emplean compuestos alucinógenos, enteógenos, los cuales han sido llamados a través de diversos nombres, en distintas culturas, a través de distintas épocas de la historia. Quiero mostrar algunos de los nombres y descomponer algunas de las palabras. Las palabras en sí son muy simbólicas en muchos casos, y las secciones que forman las palabras proceden de distintos idiomas antiguos. Cuando las descomponemos etimológicamente y vemos la etimología de la palabra, nos dice mucho acerca de la intención del significado de la palabra. Algunos de estos compuestos alucinógenos que los chamanes han usado durante siglos son compuestos naturales, que han sido utilizados ampliamente a través del mundo, tales como el cannabis, en sus diversas formas, sativa o índica, y distintas variaciones de setas alucinógenas, que crecen en todos los continentes del planeta. También el compuesto conocido como la ayahuasca, o diversos análogos de la ayahuasca, preparados a menudo en Sudamérica y América Central. Uno de los ingredientes activos de la ayahuasca es dimetiltriptamina, que no está en esta imagen. En cambio, la imagen de la derecha es el análogo inhibidor del MAO, que funciona con la dimetiltriptamina para hacerla oralmente activa. Esta es la imagen de la raíz llamada Mimosa hostilis, utilizada por muchos chamanes para crear la ayahuasca, añadiendo a esta un material de planta que contiene DMT. El DMT es otro compuesto psicodélico enteogénico que los chamanes han utilizado a menudo, o derivados de este, o similares compuestos a este como el bifotomine. Pero regresando a la etimología de la palabra, enteogénico es una manera más moderna de ver a los psicodélicos. Proviene del griego y el latín. El prefijo griego en significa dentro. Luego, teo significa, que proviene del griego theos, significa Dios o divinidad, y la última parte procede del verbo latín genere, que significa crear. Así pues, la palabra enteogénico significa generar la divinidad adentro. No significa convertirse en Dios, significa trabajar con y alimentar la chispa divina dentro del individuo al comulgar con esta fuerza que es capaz de abrir otra experiencia dimensional dentro del individuo. A través de esta síntesis con estos compuestos podemos ver otros reinos internos a través del ojo de la mente, cuando incorporamos estos compuestos o espíritus ayudantes. Estos compuestos han sido llamados psicodélicos. Esta palabra es más popular, viene del sustantivo griego psique, significando mente, y el verbo griego deloun, que significa hacer visible o revelar al eliminar la fuente del oscurecimiento. En otras palabras, el desocultar, literalmente. La palabra psicodélico significa desocultar. Y yo no soy defensor del uso irresponsable de estos compuestos. Yo siento que tienen un propósito específico y que pueden ser utilizados para inspirar y levantar la conciencia humana si trabajamos con ellos de forma respetuosa. Psicodélico literalmente significa el revelar la mente o desocultar aspectos de la mente. Estos fueron los verdaderos sacramentos del mundo antiguo, empleados por los primeros seres humanos. La palabra sacramento viene del adjetivo latín sacrum, que significa sagrado o santo, y el sustantivo latín mens o mentis, que significa mente. Entonces, sacramento es algo capaz de fomentar la mente sagrada o un estado de conciencia sagrada. Por esto, los sacramentos del mundo antiguo eran activos, eran componentes activos que se daban a la congregación, a los iniciados de estas tradiciones chamánicas. En cambio, en nuestras religiones de hoy en día han convertido una tradición esotérica, con ese, en un fragmento o una memoria fragmentada del verdadero chamanismo del pasado, del mundo antiguo, y ahora usan sacramentos inertes en las congregaciones religiosas que no provocan ninguna alteración al estado de la conciencia. Sacramentos psicodélicos o enteógenos también han sido conocidos como comunión. Este es un término religioso, claro, en la tradición cristiana. Comunión procede de la preposición latín com, que significa juntos, y el verbo latín munire, que significa crear, endurecer, fortalecer o proteger. Entonces, comunión significa el crear juntos o el crear unidos. Y esto es lo que la comunión dentro de una comunidad ayuda a hacer. Ayuda a crear fuerza juntos, entrando en un estado de protección, al entender moralidad y ley natural. Y finalmente, estos compuestos son referidos como medicina, que probablemente sea la mejor definición de estos, porque son verdadera medicina, específicamente el cannabis, puesto que el cannabis es una de las más potentes medicinas curanderas de cualquier problema crónico, pero especialmente para curar el cáncer de todo tipo. Y esto es algo que ha sido ocultado a la vista de la mayoría, porque las empresas farmacéuticas quieren que la gente dependan de sus drogas cargadas de efectos dañinos y que se encuentran bajo efectos secundarios durante la duración de su vida. La palabra medicina proviene del sustantivo latín medi, que significa el medio, el centro, el punto de equilibrio, el balance, y cinus, que significa ruina, destrucción y caos. Entonces, la palabra medicina significa traer el balance o el equilibrio a aquello que estaba en ruinas o destruido. En otras palabras, traer orden a aquello que está en caos. Por último, con lo que el chamán en verdad trabaja es el conocimiento de saber. Esto es lo más importante que se puede traer a una sociedad que está en ruinas o traer orden a una sociedad que estaba en caos. El conocimiento es la medicina definitiva de la cultura chamánica. Lo que me trae al siguiente punto. Este es un punto de vista bastante polémico, el que voy a exponer ahora. pero si lo investigas llegarás al entendimiento y te darás cuenta de que en verdad este es el caso. Mucha gente no será partidaria de esta posición, pero yo sí. La cultura chamánica era muy controladora de sus críos. Y no quiero utilizar la palabra control, diría más bien guiadores estrictos de sus jóvenes. Usemos esta expresión, porque control toma una connotación muy negativa, porque el control es a menudo usado con propósito manipulativo, diseñado para conseguir el deseo del manipulador del control, su egoísta voluntad. Pienso que deberíamos entender mejor en qué consistía la educación chamánica en profundidad. Muchas culturas chamánicas, a través del tiempo, han empleado un sistema de educación moral. La enseñanza de los principios de las leyes naturales a sus críos. En el sistema educativo chamánico se considera inaceptable el no enseñar las objetivas diferencias entre el bien y el mal comportamiento a una edad temprana. Y esto es algo que ni siquiera es enseñado en nuestra sociedad. Enviamos a nuestros críos a un sistema gobernado por el Estado, que quiere enseñarles conformidad, obediencia y hacerles maleables, para que sus mentes sean fácilmente moldeadas para lo que el Estado quiere que sean. Por eso se llama educación basada en resultados. Bueno, pues la educación chamánica puede ser vista como otra forma distinta a la educación basada en resultado, porque de entrada, en el que la cultura chamánica se aseguraba que sus críos, tras recibir la educación, saldrían seres humanos. De lo contrario, no vivirían en esa cultura, especialmente las antiguas versiones de estas. En el mundo moderno, estas prácticas están muriendo, ya que no existen actualmente casi ninguna cultura chamánica que prácticamente haya sobrevivido a la influencia del crecimiento de la civilización moderna, las ciudades y la tecnología. Estamos aniquilando a estas antiguas culturas chamánicas. Quedan muy pocas en lugares muy remotos, básicamente solo en Sudamérica y África, y en algunos lugares aislados de Asia.
After 6 million years of boredom, the evolutionary ascent of our species from the last common ancestor with the chimpanzee, something extraordinary happened to us less than 100,000 years ago, which, by the way, is long after we'd become anatomically modern. It was a kind of emergence into consciousness less than 100,000 years ago, really less than 40,000 years ago, when we became fully symbolic creatures. And this great change has been defined as the single most important step forward in the evolution of human behavior, is intimately associated with the emergence of the great and transcendent rock and cave art all around the world. And over the last 30 years, researchers led by Professor David Lewis Williams at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa and many others have suggested an intriguing and radical possibility, which is that this emergence into consciousness was triggered by our ancestors' encounters with visionary plants and the beginning of shamanism. If you analyze the cave art, there's not time to go into the details here, but there are so many details that make it clear that this was an art of altered states of consciousness, of visions, and that plants like the Amanita muscaria mushroom or psilocybin mushrooms appear to have been directly connected with this sudden and radical change. So to investigate this possibility, when I got interested in this mystery, I went down to the Amazon, where there are still surviving shamanistic cultures today, and where they drink the powerful visionary brew ayahuasca, of which the active ingredient is dimethyltryptamine, DMT, which is actually closely related at the molecular level to psilocybin. Now, normally, DMT cannot be activated orally. When we encounter it in the West, it's generally smoked. There's an enzyme in our stomachs called monoamine oxidase, which switches off DMT on contact. But in the Amazon, they've got round this problem, and they say it was the spirits that taught them how to do it. The DMT in the ayahuasca brew is contained in these leaves from a plant that they call chacruna in the Amazon. And there they mix it together with this vine. And out of the 150,000 different species of plants and trees in the Amazon, this is the one that contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which switches off that enzyme in our stomachs and allows the DMT in the leaves, when the two are married together and cooked in water, to be absorbed orally and takes us on a 4-hour journey into extraordinary realms. Now, it's no joke to drink ayahuasca. The ayahuasca brew it has a foul taste, really, really hideous, and a dreadful, dreadful smell. And after you've drunk your cup, you'll find within 45 minutes or so that you're sweating, that you're feeling nauseous. Pretty soon you may well be vomiting, you may well have diarrhea. So, nobody's doing this for recreation. And I'd like to add that I don't think any of the psychedelics should be used for recreation. They have much more serious and important mission with humanity. So we're not doing this for fun. But what draws people to ayahuasca again and again to brace themselves for this experience, and you do have to brace yourself, is its extraordinary effects at the level of consciousness. And one of those effects has to do with creativity, and we can see the creative cosmogenic impulse of ayahuasca in the paintings of ayahuasca shamans from Peru, like the paintings of Pablo Amaringo here, those richly saturated colors, the amazing visions that they reproduce. And this creative impulse has also spread to Western artists. Many Western artists now have been deeply influenced by ayahuasca and are also painting their visions. And as these paintings show, another universal experience of ayahuasca is the encounter with seemingly intelligent entities which communicate with us telepathically. Now, I'm making no claim one way or another as to the reality status of these entities we encounter, simply that phenomenologically, in the ayahuasca experience, they are encountered by people all over the world. And most frequently of all, the spirit of ayahuasca herself, Mother Ayahuasca, who is a healer. And although she's kind of the mother goddess of the planet, she seems to take a direct personal interest in us as individuals, to heal our ills, to want us to be the best that we can possibly be, to correct errors and mistakes in our behavior that may be leading us down the wrong path. And this is perhaps why, and it's an untold story really, ayahuasca has been fantastically successful in getting people off harmful addictions to hard drugs such as heroin and cocaine. Jacques Mabit at the Taquihuasi Clinic in Peru brings heroin and cocaine addicts out there for a month, gives them 12 ayahuasca sessions, and they have encounters with Mother Ayahuasca during those sessions that lead them not to wish to take heroin or cocaine anymore, and more than half leave completely free of their addiction, never return to it, and don't even have withdrawal symptoms. And the same incredible healing work was being done in Canada by Dr. Gabor Mate until the Canadian government intervened and stopped his healing practice on the grounds that ayahuasca itself was an illegal drug. Now, I have some personal experience of this. I've not been addicted to heroin or cocaine, but I had a 24-year non-stop cannabis habit. And this started off smoking the herb and laterally vaporizing it, but the basic truth is that for 24 years, I was pretty much permanently stoned. And I enjoyed being stoned. And I felt that it helped me with my work as a writer, and perhaps at some point it did. But when I first encountered ayahuasca, I'd already been smoking cannabis for 16 years, and almost immediately, ayahuasca started giving me messages that this was no longer serving me, that it was leading me to behave in negative and unhelpful ways towards others. And of course, I ignored those messages for years and years and went back to being stoned 16 hours a day. But that negative behavior that ayahuasca was pointing up did actually get worse and worse. I don't want to put down cannabis, and I believe it's the sovereign right of every adult to choose to smoke cannabis if they wish to do so. But I think I was overusing it. I think I was abusing it, not using it responsibly. And I became more and more paranoid, jealous, possessive, suspicious. I was subject to irrational rages. I often made the life of my beloved partner, Santha, a misery. And when I went down for my regular encounter with ayahuasca in October 2011, I was given the most unbelievable kicking by Mother Ayahuasca. And I was put through an ordeal. It was a kind of life review. And it's not an accident that ayahuasca is the vine of the dead. I was shown my death. And I was shown that if I came to death and what awaits us after death, without having corrected the mistakes that I was making in my life, that it would be a very bad thing for me. And actually, Mother Ayahuasca literally took me to hell. And that hell was a little like this hell painted by Hieronymus Bosch, a truly terrible place, and a little like the place that the ancient Egyptians called the judgment hall of Osiris, where our souls are weighed in the scales in the presence of the gods against the feather of truth, of justice, of cosmic harmony. And I was shown that the path I was walking, my abuse of cannabis and the behavior associated with it, was going to lead me to be found wanting in the judgment, and that I might face annihilation in the world beyond death. So perhaps not surprising that when I came back to England later in October 2011, I gave up cannabis, and I've never smoked it again since then. And actually, and again, I'm speaking only personally with no comment on others' use of cannabis, it's as though a monkey has been lifted off my back. They have nothing to say on the matter at all. Let's go rather to the ancient Egyptians, who put their best minds to work for 3,000 years on the problem of death and on the problem of how we should live our lives to prepare for what we will confront after death. And the ancient Egyptians expressed their ideas in transcendent art, which still touches us emotionally today, and they came to certain very specific conclusions that the soul does survive death and that we will be held accountable for every thought, every action, every deed that we have lived through in our lives. So we better take this precious opportunity to be born in a human body seriously and make the most of it. And in these inquiries into the mystery of death, the ancient Egyptians weren't just exercising their imaginations. They highly valued dream states, and it's now known that they used visionary plants like the hallucinogenic blue water lily. And it's interesting that the ancient Egyptian tree of life has recently been identified as the Acacia nilotica, which contains high quantities of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the same active ingredient that we find in ayahuasca. Now, it's difficult to imagine a society more different from the society of ancient Egypt than our society today. We hate visionary states in this society. In our society, if we want to insult somebody, we call them a dreamer. In ancient societies, that was praise. And we have erected huge apparatuses of armed bureaucracies who will invade our privacy, who will break down our doors, who will arrest us, who will send us to prison, sometimes for years, for possessing even small quantities of psilocybin or substances like DMT, whether in its smokable form or in the ayahuasca brew. And yet, ironically, DMT is, we now know, a natural brain hormone. We all have it in our bodies, and it's just that its function remains unknown for lack of research. And it's not as though our society is opposed in principle to altered states of consciousness. I mean, billions are being made by the unholy alliance of psychiatrists and big pharma in overprescribing drugs to control so-called syndromes like depression or attention deficit disorder in teenagers. And we have a love affair in our society with alcohol. We glorify this most boring of drugs, despite the terrible consequences that it often has. And of course, we love our stimulants, our tea, our coffee, our energy drinks, our sugar, and huge industries are built around these substances, which are valued because of the way they alter consciousness. But what all these approved altered states of consciousness have in common is that none of them contradict or conflict with the basic state of consciousness valued by our society, which I would call the alert, problem-solving state of consciousness, which is good for the more mundane aspects of science. It's good for the prosecution of warfare. It's good for commerce. It's good for politics. But I think everybody realizes that the promise of a society over-monopolistically based upon this state of consciousness has proved hollow, and that this model is no longer working, that it's broken in every possible sense that a model can be broken, and that urgently we need to find something to replace it. The vast problems of global pollution that have resulted from the single-minded pursuit of profit, the horrors of nuclear proliferation, the specter of hunger, that millions every night go to bed starving, that we can't even solve this problem despite our alert problem-solving state of consciousness. And look what's happening in the Amazon, the lungs of our planet, this precious home of biodiversity. The old-growth rainforest being cut down and replaced with soybean farms so we can feed cattle, so that we can all eat hamburgers. Only a truly insane global state of consciousness could allow such an abomination to occur. And this is perhaps why shamans from the Amazon are now mounting a kind of reverse missionary activity. When I've asked shamans about the sickness of the West, they say it's quite simple. You guys have severed your connection with spirit. Unless you reconnect with spirit and do so soon, you're going to bring the whole house of cards down around your heads and ours. And rightly or wrongly, they believe that ayahuasca is the remedy for that sickness. And many now are being called to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca, and ayahuasca shamans are traveling throughout the West, offering the brew, often under the radar, often at personal risk, to bring about consciousness change. And it's true that the message of ayahuasca, the universal message, is about the sacred, magical, enchanted, infinitely precious nature of life on Earth and the interdependence of material and spiritual realms. And it's impossible to work with ayahuasca for long without being deeply and profoundly affected by this message. And let's not forget that ayahuasca is not alone, that it's part of an ancient worldwide system of the targeted, careful, responsible alteration of consciousness. It's recently been shown by scholars that the kykeon used in the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece was almost certainly a psychedelic brew, that the soma of the Vedas may well have been a brew based upon the Amanita muscaria mushroom. We have the DMT in the ancient Egyptian tree of life. We have the whole global cultures of surviving shamanism, and what it's all about is a state of consciousness that's designed to help us find balance, harmony. The ancient Egyptians would have called it mart, with the universe, and to remain mindful that what we're here to undertake on Earth while immersed in matter is fundamentally a spiritual journey aimed at the growth and perfection of the soul, a journey that may go back to the very origins of what made us human in the first place. And I stand here invoking the hard-won right of freedom of speech to call for and demand another right to be recognized, and that is the right of adult sovereignty over consciousness. There's a war on consciousness in our society, and if we as adults are not allowed to make sovereign decisions about what to experience with our own consciousness while doing no harm to others, including the decision to use responsibly ancient and sacred visionary plants, then we cannot claim to be free in any way. And it's useless for our society to go around the world imposing our form of democracy on others while we nourish this rot at the heart of society and we do not allow individual freedom over consciousness. It may even be that we're denying ourselves the next vital step in our own evolution by allowing this state of affairs to continue, and who knows, perhaps our immortal destiny as well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you.